Hopefully I'm coming across, good, nice and clear. Good morning, good morning, great morning. If you're seeing this and hearing this, well, let me know. Hopefully should be coming through straight, coming through nice and clear. So good morning. Can't believe it, another Monday, March Madness, for real. Was it 18 days in already, and we've seen several things happen in the crypto space, and sadly in the outside space as well. Yeah, it's just crazy. I just literally heard a few hours ago there was another potential terrorist attack in Holland, in a place called Utrecht. Yeah, Godspeed, these prayers, thoughts and prayers that we send to the people affected. So yeah, hope you had a good, relaxing weekend. Safe and sound, everything's fine, and you're getting your week started. Hopefully we'll have a blessed week. As always, things are always popping in the crypto space, always something being developed, always progress. And so I'll get straight into it. Bitcoin in particular. We have been, wondering, when are we going to see this turnaround? Is this going to be a trend reversal? These bullish movements, are they real? That's the number one question I'm being getting. Is this false moves, or is this the start of something? And I kept saying before, obviously we can't time tops and bottoms, but certainly we can use a few clues, a few indicators to see, if this is actually established an ascending trend, a clear trend, showing us, all manner, in every way, there's an increase in usage or an increase in value. Somehow, by different metrics, we're able to get like a bigger picture of what's happening in the market. So with Bitcoin, last time I checked, the price was just over $4,000, holding on to that particular area. And I'm glad to see, once over the past few months, it has been some optimistic moves being made, but we have seen in the last year or so, when we see false moves, or some bull traps, as they're called, and dead cat bounces, we can be tricked into thinking this might be an actual bull run, this start of a bull run or whatnot. So again, like I said last week and following on today, it is good that we're seeing volumes return back, and that we do need to see it sustained. And in altcoins in particular, they are having a well of a time, aren't they? So, adding something is, like 10% over the last week in particular. So, but, we have to still stick to our goals, stick to our, not get too overly excited. We have to wait for confirmations. This is, as I said, as we get nearer and nearer to the bottom of where we will end up accumulating and ranging for some time, and then there will be clear signs of reversal. And partly with that, a strong indicator is the volumes, and in particular with Bitcoin. It has been a promising start to this month. So I am still wary. I'm still looking at the ranges that we need to break out of, and that 4,200, as I kept saying before, is the one to watch. And it's, it's getting closer and closer. It keeps retesting that 4,000, keeps dipping back down to 3,900 and something. And that support level at 3,800, that's another one to watch. And if it goes beyond that, we may be looking at 3,500. But all eyes are now to, the market is waiting to see if there's enough momentum, if there's enough change in sentiment, if there's enough volumes and other metrics like transactions, um, uh, and other factors to see that this is actually a real sustained bullish move, and we'll be recovering and coming out of this bear market, this period, this cycle where we are. And so, the fact that it surpassed that, or was it the total market cap has surpassed that for $140 billion in value. That is, I mean, today is dropped down to 139.1 billion, but when it was this weekend in particular, when we see it adding volume to the market, it is a positive sign. But again, I'm personally staying calm. I'm staying, I want to see what the bears do. I think, that they must be looking at this and thinking, okay, at which point do we feel is overbought conditions? At which point do we want to do we want to pump up the price more, to trap more buyers, more investors in, and then take it down again? That's going to be, or is there something that will spook the market again? That, when these sudden moves happen, obviously it's unexpected, and it's sometimes timed. It's, it coincides with certain events that happen or developments. But as I said, this market before is super resilient. It always bounces back, and the price is not, in my opinion, it's not reflective of the true intrinsic value of the industry, of these projects. So a lot of collective development has been, to some extent, it has started to have this ripple effect, this, all these network effects and the utility that it provides for different stakeholders, is understood, is acknowledged, is beginning to be accepted. And that percentage of acceptance, that percentage of adoption, the percentage of awareness, the percentage of investments coming into this space overall, that overall is on the rise. So that gives me, confidence rooted in the evidence, rooted in what we're seeing overall, that this space will eventually recover, the prices will recover, and that there will be increased adoption. Now with Bitcoin, this is coming off its fourth consecutive winning week. So the fact that we are now, I mean, the fact that it's still holding on to that range, that keeps bouncing between that 3,900, 4,000, and trying to hold on to that, that's a good support level. And the fact that it's being retested, that 4,000 is a psychological level. The market is trying to test its strength and see, okay, is this where the majority of the buyers are? Because it's not, the way we're seeing it right now, it's holding, it's quite reliable for what we can see, and we may actually start to see range as well. And this is a period of accumulation for some investors. But again, it really does need to prove by giving us confirmations that this is a reversal, a potential bullish reversal. And so, remember what we saw with when it held at that 6,000 level, 6,000 support last year. A lot of people thought it wouldn't break down and get to the point where it is now. So it's really important to wait it out and see how the market responds, and if this is real or not, if it's fake. We will know within a few days, if not weeks. But if it's real, the progress that we've seen it in the last few, 3 or 4 weeks in particular, that will continue to build and give us more confirmation. And so the thing I kept saying in particular with volume, that's a key indicator. And with Bitcoin's daily exchange volume, that has been substantial increases with Bitcoin. And altcoins have been having a great run as well, because they've been using Bitcoin, seeing that as the price being stable, and also being seen as a store of value. But they're taking risks now to make short-term gains in the alt market, and they feel there's a rise in, there's an error of expectation. And even if we don't get decisions regarding the ETFs and future BTC backed futures and whatnot, the market is still proceeding forward. It's still going ahead and building, and doing whatever it needs to do to continue to grow. And the number one thing with this that underpins this is making sure that they continue to solve problems, and that they availability issues like security as well, especially with the breaches, the hacks that we've seen. But with Bitcoin in particular, though, I mean, we've seen volumes come back. We've seen the number of transactions on the rise. So it is given optimism. It is given rise to not only Bitcoin itself, but the rest of the market. And so that's partly one of the reasons why altcoins have been pumping. And also fundamentally, there has been projects that have had amazing news come out, and they've continued to build on the progress they've made, and that the investors coming in, the type of investors we have in this space, they're more mature, they're more aware of what's actually going on with the market. When I say mature, they know exactly the type of things to look for, and it usually relates to long-term fundamentals. So in terms of making sure that they have real world use case and not just throwing their money here, there and everywhere, like we saw in the initial ICO craze in 2017. The type of investors coming into the market are a lot more aware, a lot more mature. They have a mature outlook. And there's evidence to suggest that the projects that are being worked on right now, that they're going to end up having spectacular bull runs as well, when the market recovers and we see a new phase. So this is another thing to watch out for as well. There's going to be different projects happening in terms of halving. I mentioned Litecoin before, I mentioned Bitcoin. There's partnerships being involved, there's beta testing, test nets and whatnot that happen. There's projects that are being listed on Binance or other exchanges, and so on. And the rate of adoption overall, from what we're seeing on the ground by different stakeholders, is increasing. And Bitcoin is used almost like a reference as a digital store of value, to be able to have that much more confidence to be able to test the market, and to provide, to derive value, but also add to it as well. And so overall, we're just seeing this collective, positive sentiment backed up by time, money, resources, slowly but surely being added into the industry. So that is, why we're optimistic from what we can see. And the general, I have to speak in regards to the general sentiment. we have been through a horrific time, depending who you are. Some people, you know, they're battle tested, they're battle ready, and they've been okay. But some people to deal with 60, 70, 80% drawdowns, or you know, loss of value. But you know, that still doesn't change the fact that you know, when you look at the value of the industry where it is right now, as opposed to where it was, you know, just a few years ago, you know, even 5 years ago. I'm not talking just in terms of price, but in terms of development. The crypto industry that we see now is far more valuable in my eyes than where we were before. And so prices and everything, but definitely one of the indicators to watch is volume, and that, you know, this was in the past 4 or 5 months, the volume has increased by 150%. So that's another thing to be aware of. You know, if you look at the daily time frame as well for Bitcoin, it's just literally been trending down, but it's starting to break out of that downtrend. But again, we have to see, you know, it has to be retested. We have to see it break old resistance levels, and be able to confirm that as well. So, you know, the fact that the daily exchange volume is on the increase is a, you know, a very good, a solid indicator. But again, don't get too excited yet. In my opinion, we still need to see if it could be sustained. It's, you know, at any point in time, you know, an increase in volume can happen, but you know, sustaining that is another matter. So, you know, these are good positive developments. And that, you know, when you have daily exchange volume being exceeded, 10, $10 billion being exceeded, and that this March, was it 18 days into March already, but 5 days in this month, the daily exchange volume has exceeded that $10 billion barrier. So, you know, that is another good sign, in my opinion. And in the past year, it exceeded that 10 billion volume, that daily exchange volume, like was it 8 or 9 times in the past year as well. And out of those, 5 of those days has been this month. So that's very encouraging. And so, you know, that is, you know, I'm trying not to get too overwhelmed, or too, well, I'm not going to be overwhelmed, but I'm not going to get too excited yet. You know, this is something that we've been looking for, all of us in this space have been looking forward to, because we know at some point, when the reversal, when the recovery happens, that there will be more eyes on us than before, that, you know, people that have previously left the space, or, you know, new people coming into the space, they will now be looking at this and thinking, you know, what will be the difference between the parabolic rise we saw in 2017 and what's happening in 2019. And I think this one is going to be a lot better, for different reasons. It will take me all day to explain, but as I said before, it's more fragmented. There's more niche, that the market's been carved up, and we've got more niches, more maturity, stability. There's been more adoption. You know, different ways of verifying, and making, you know, showing and proving that there's been real world use case for different people around the world. And, you know, there's more institutions, more organizations, more investors. We see this on the daily, all these types of collective developments happening, big names, household names. You know, you may even have started to notice that you have a Bitcoin ATM around your area in a local shop now, or, you know, so and so person that's now beginning to adopt cryptos, beginning to open up accounts and wallets. And you know, you see it in your everyday lives, but you also know it, you're also witnessing that the big names, the household names that we know, they're already going ahead and entering this space and creating pilots and projects, whether it's their own blockchain, whether they jump on an existing one, or you know, there's one way, shape, or form. There's always something to give us like mini confirmations that there's, you know, adoption of some type happening, and that's really encouraging. When you start seeing that rise around your local area or in your, you know, state, in your country, then you know that's very encouraging. That's how this industry is going to grow. So the fact that, you know, we are now like we need to, for me, I have to see several more confirmations, and I have to see it tested and retested again. I'm talking in terms of particular ranges and price points. You know, I mentioned 4,200, but if it surpasses that, we're looking at 4,500, then 4,850, and then 5,000. So I'm looking at, you know, these particular price points to see, okay, and the volume behind it, because I know on the fundamental aspect, it's already, in my opinion, it's already going to moon at some point. It's already going to, when the bull cycle returns, there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to see the previous all-time high being surpassed 20,000 and beyond. And I certainly see it as a six-figure, seven-figure coin, Bitcoin in particular, and the industry growing to be worth trillions of dollars. But of course, there's been a lot of speculation and predictions and forecasts, and it's easy to do that, especially right now with what's happening in the good indications, good reasons suggest it's not just institutional investors, and organizations and different businesses and companies, you know, looking to go into the space of they're already not. You know, that's something which does give confidence to the market. But to be honest with you, we don't need, you know, traditional finance institutions to make this industry a success. It was already a success before them, as far as I'm concerned, and that's only added now, you know, because they can't beat the technology. It's something that they have to formulate policies to be able to extract value, that, you know, and adjust to a new ever-changing space to be able to make sure that they stay relevant. So that with Bitcoin, we have to see these, you know, particular, in my opinion, these price points I mentioned tested, and you know, it would be, but in my opinion, if we see it dip down to 3,500, even 3,100, and then go back up and surpass 4,200, 4,500, and so on, that would actually be a lot more, in my opinion, a lot more convincing than if we just start shooting up all the way to 5,000, 6,000 now. You know, slow and steady wins the race, as they say. So this is something that we hopefully will build. You know, anything can happen, obviously. With whales could come at any time. If you saw Ripple, there was a massive spike down. You know, with a whale dumping on Ripple. It was whoever had placed, whoever was trading on that day and placed the what do you call it, sell buy orders or sell orders and whatnot. It targeted both both buyers and sellers. It took them out. It was crazy if you see that spike a few days ago. But anyway, Bitcoin, you know, it does need to prove it to us. So you know, one of the great things on the fundamental aspect that we've been looking at where Bitcoin's concerned has been the Lightning Network. And we've mentioned before how it's continuing to increase speed and transactions, adoption. So the great news, though, with Lightning Network, it's actually exceeded 1,000 Bitcoin. That's 1,000 Bitcoin. So that's $4 million in US, and that's something that, you know, it only started something like a year ago. That has been rolled out, and then I mean, it was in testing phase before, but it was a year or so. And it's just been, you know, getting better and better, and we're starting to see some progress on that. And so the more payment merchants and the more businesses continue to accept Bitcoin as a form of payment, and they use the Lightning Network to be able to do that, and you know, the more we see these channels being added, it's going to be a fantastic sign for not only Bitcoin but the industry as a whole. And you know, you have to think about Lightning Network is still in its early days, so that I'm still optimistic of the fact that these big projects, I know with Ethereum as well, they've been working on the scalability issues and the upgrades. This is something which will get better and better. It will improve over time, and I feel at some point it will rival the speed and ease of use that you get with using Visa or PayPal or any number of payment processors that are able to handle high volume of transactions per second, per minute. So again, this is extremely encouraging, and you know, it just adds to what we're seeing, to the industry, to the ecosystems. And I mentioned before, Kroger, remember they cancelled, literally cancelled Visa. They didn't want to use Visa as a form of payment for their customers. It was just too expensive. The network fees were too expensive, and they felt that, you know, it was, you know, basically greed on Visa's part, and that you know, they're now, well, we'll see if they're going to adopt Lightning Network. But if they do, Kroger, I mean, if you have your local Kroger at where you live, if you just whip out your phone and be able to pay with a crypto, with Bitcoin, and you make your life easier if you run out of cash at one point, or it's just much easier, you know, to deal with at that time. Having those options is going to be a game changer for people that do their daily shop. You know, you may be gifted Bitcoins, or you may be earning them via mining, via trade and whatnot. And you have your salary coming in, or you know, you have your dollars coming in, but then you have another form, another stream of income, or another you know, funds that are not correlated with other markets and other assets. That's what crypto does. It gives you, it reduces your risk. And if something happens, God forbid, but they are saying, you know, the economy, top economists are predicting there will be a recession at some point in the US, and that, you know, if it comes down to that, imagine if you were in a position where, you know, you had to watch out for your dollars, you were avoiding spending them, or you know, you it depends on what you do, and what your spending methods are, you know, what your saving strategy is, investing strategy and whatnot. But having another alternative payment, another alternative funds, to be able to take care of, you know, your basic needs, your shopping or whatever. You may imagine being in that position where you know, you don't want to need it, but it's so good to have it just in case, as an emergency, as contingency. The peace of mind that you get knowing, okay, if I have this as a backup, and it's sitting there ready to be used, and it's not related. The banks can't shut it down. No one can shut it down. The only way they can get access to it is if they have your private keys. Um, and so, that's really the critical thing, is having that, additional option, non-correlated asset, and that doesn't affect the rest of your portfolio, doesn't affect the rest of your investments elsewhere. So the market tanks if the US dollar falls in value, which is expected to happen as countries and economies look for alternative ways to be able to make sure that they have their own economic security in place. And part of, you're already seeing some of America's, arch, excuse me, you're seeing not only the arch enemies of America, but their allies also getting ready to, if they haven't already started, to be able to, insulate themselves from another potential economic collapse, or, like the global credit crisis that we saw. And to be able to make sure that their systems are resilient, and they will be looking for alternative ways. So part of that will be the reduction, the reducing the reliance on the US dollar, and looking for alternatives, much safer places to to make sure and have backups. That's the key thing, contingency planning. And with cryptos, for the ordinary person in particular, this is going to be a lot more important, more powerful than what the government, what their policies are. Because I personally believe, like with the next recession, there's going to be a lot more people, more open-minded, more willing to look for alternatives, to just make sure that they are right, because they're not going to rely on the banks. They're not going to want to trust and rely on other traditional what do you call it, authorities, to be able to look after them. That that mind state is being challenged. It's been like there's a huge mistrust of government, of central authority, of third parties, and that, I think, that sentiment will only continue to grow. So and we're seeing that in the change in behavior as well. More people are seeking out alternatives, more people are investing, more people are creating new ways to define value and be able to reduce the risks for them, be able to protect their own families, their own communities, and actually reach out to other communities and other people worldwide, and find ways that they can directly communicate, directly transact. And that's why this, with our technology, with this industry, it's not just the finance, it's not just the money aspect, but the value that we're able to transact, the benefits that we get from this is actually going to compound. It will actually have a more, we're going to see a more exponential effect when we have another shock, another trauma happen. And in my eyes, I think it's going to have to be another recession. I think that's when, a huge percentage of the mainstream will be woken up to the industry that we're in, and the timing of that, how it will coincide, and hopefully if that coincides with the beginning of a bull market, a recovery phase, then that's actually where I feel the network effect will increase in a way that we never thought before. Things may actually end up moving faster than we thought. But all these things happening, will end up being a perfect storm. But for now, we're still ahead of it. And so with Lightning Network, as I mentioned before, the fact that it's adding these number of channels, it's up by 18% to well over 7,380 channels. and I can only expect it to go higher and higher, in my opinion. And watch out for, in terms of the volume, look for 145, 140, between 145 and 150 billion dollars in terms of volume. So, you know, um, that's actually, what was it? Add in 5 to 10 billion dollars on top. So, we have to watch out for these indicators and see, okay, this will be, making sure it's sustained, and this does look like a bullish trend, and for it to be sustained and be long term, that's what we need to get more, confidence in the market. It's no good just pumping, to 4,200 if it then drops down through 3,800. Um, and that's why I want it, in my opinion, I do want that correction to happen, um, a proper, fallback to the previous level, even 3,100, and then go up to the 4,500, 4,800, and beyond that. So that's how I see things. And yeah, with the 3,800, look out for that. That's the support where I think may be tested again. And if we do see 4,200 being broken, look out for 4,500, but also look out for higher volumes and higher transaction number as well. Look out for those things. And just to add to that as well, we had Block.one CEO actually say that Bitcoin, in his opinion, will replace gold as a store of value by the year 2040. Now, obviously, gold, in my opinion, it'll always have this eternal value that you can't. It's not just the fact that it's a natural resource, but there's sentimental value with that as well. If you've inherited gold, or if you got married and you were given gold jewelry, or even for studying, graduating, some parents or some families actually give jewelry as a congratulatory present and whatnot. So gold, all throughout history, I mean, the wars that have been fought, the how it's been used in our society, I don't think that will completely disappear. I think gold will always be seen as a store of, as one of the store of value. But what's shocking is the vast majority of gold, where it is in the hands of, is not in the ordinary, people. It's in the elite, which is not surprising. So I definitely think in times of crisis, gold will still pump up, but there is a shift going with how the industry is perceiving cryptos, and with Bitcoin in particular. If it continues to develop, if it continues to mature and have more security, more transparency, more portability, more interoperability, all these things, people, because if you value your time, and if you have different ways of making multiple streams of income in the industry, you're going to start thinking differently about how you see value. If you are able to define your own value, what you feel could be sold in the market, and that there's enough demand there and whatnot, because you have the power, and there's a market for it, and it's straight A to B, no third party intermediary and whatnot, no central authority, and that puts power back in the both parties that are transacting, puts more power back to you. So with gold, there are several things. So I do agree that at some point Bitcoin will be. I'm not sure if it will replace gold, but I think it will be up there, seen on tier with gold. but replacing it, I'm not too sure about that. But the arguments for it are very strong. I mean, you have to look at the fact that not everyone could be. I mean, it's dangerous to be carrying gold with you. You know, it's just anything can happen. You could be robbed and whatnot. And it's obviously we've evolved with our financial methods and ways of doing business and transactions. You know, the different payment methods and stuff. That's all evolved. And so, you know, it's seen more of a not only as a store of value or something to pass down to future generations, or in some, you know, cultures it's used as dowry for, you know, weddings and whatnot. But it's just, I feel it has that it still has that special value, that attachment that humanity has with gold and precious resources. I don't think that bond will be severed. It will take a long time for us to get anywhere near that, in my opinion. And because it is a finite product, it's a natural resource that, you know, a lot of money has been spent to extract from the ores and process it and distribute it. The costs that are along the supply chain. I mean, these things all, you know, help to make it valuable. And so, you know, with how things are moving though, with in the digital world, I can see a need for the, you know, a store of value like Bitcoin. I can 100% see how useful and you know, how it can benefit many people. And we've already seen that with Venezuela, how it's used as a store of value, and, you know, help them to you know, mitigate the effects of hyperinflation of their bolivar domestic currency. So that actually saves lives. And so from my the thing with Bitcoin and gold, and in particular, scarcity is one of those things that will help determine the value, but also think of the ease of use, the ease of transfer. And that's, in my opinion, with Bitcoin, that definitely helps a lot more. I certainly do not want to be carrying my gold around at any point unless I'm ready to sell it or ready to gift it or ready to do something important with it. And you know, with we know with it being what do you call it, the 21 million that will be mined in in the year 2140, so that we know is fixed and that cannot be manipulated. And that here's another important aspect of it, like there's paper claims to gold, but with Bitcoin you actually have to you know, for you to be the owner of a Bitcoin, there's no paper claims. It literally is straight up, do you have the private keys? If you do, you own that. You have real 100% ownership of it. And that's where the power lies, in my opinion. If you have control of those private keys, that is my definition of independence and help to contribute towards financial freedom. But if you have paper-based claims to assets like gold or other assets where you have a third party controlling it, third party deciding, you know, to put these fees here and there for storage, for whatever the case may be, and that paper-based claims, imagine you have other people put in their claims against that very same gold, and then they can cheat you out of it. They can come up with any type of excuse. They can say, okay, sorry, our gold, our bullion, our gold that was locked up in the vault, it's been stolen. It's or, you know, they may blame it on terrorism. They may blame it on, you know, they may come out with some random clause or rule in the contract that they can change at any point, because they are the custodians of the gold. They are custodians of the asset. They have the real power. They have the ability to not only, you know, manipulate or create even more wealth or even more appreciation or value out of thin air, and be able to have all these people claiming on the very same gold that you thought was yours. That is something that for me it's a it's a super important point that people don't really understand, like in terms of the banking industry and how they use uh, our funds, our deposits, our whatever we place with the banks. We're giving away part of that power and we're getting measly returns for it. We're not getting the full, potential returns that we could if we had, digitalized it and have other alternative form where we would be able to then be the ones, to have sovereignty and to be able to determine what to charge for it, determine what value to give to it, and whatnot. And that's really part of the, idea. I mean, we can't control everything, but what we can what we can seek to do is reduce our risk, our exposure to any number of crazy things that can happen to us. And part of that is trying to get back pieces of control, having all these different assets. That it's given us chances, allowing us to maximize our opportunities whilst reducing our risk. And part of that is making sure you own the asset, you own a piece of the asset or the whole of the asset, but own it. So you're able to then do whatever, however you please at any time you want. And be able to it's like a massive game basically, but it's the bankers that are making a killing off our money, of our backs, because we have been conditioned to unwillingly hand our assets to them, and they are the ones bankrolling and making money out of money, making literally money out of thin air, value out of thin air, based using our assets, or our money, our time, whatever we put with them, as security, as collateral. So this is why it's so important that part of the debate will be, okay, is this something that actually truly promotes freedom, promotes the reduction of reliance on these third parties, these traditional systems that have more power, more and historically have used it to, have in some cases, wide-scale abuses, like we saw with the banking industry that led to the collapse in 2008. Clear demonstration of the dangers of putting our trust and faith and all our money and all our resources into these third parties and central authorities that claim to know what's best for us. And so I don't think we trust ourselves enough to be able to think differently and seek alternative ways of looking to get investment, to put investments in places where we're able to get good exposure to some volatility and potential upside, but making sure that we have our good risk management in place to mitigate some of those potential losses and drawdowns. So this is why we have to set ourselves. And what I feel is going to end up happening is that people will have a percentage in cryptos. People will have percentage in commodities like gold, like oil. People will have a percentage in real estate, in property, land, and whatnot. People will have, percentage in bonds, equities, whatever. But I think that there will be more people looking to not just put their own, to put trust in other people, and other people being custodians. I think people will now start to look in ways to get educated on the space, so that at least the more understanding that they have, the more control and power and the type of educated decisions that they will make will end up empowering them and benefiting them and the community overall. So this is where I feel, it's not, even if it replaces gold, that's okay, that's great for Bitcoin, that's crypto and whatnot. but I still think there's value to having, being exposed and having diversity in terms of assets, making sure that they're non-correlated, they're not affected. Uh, there are different industries that do not, if one goes down, all of them will not go down or be affected. There'll be something that offsets the risks. So spreading the risk is what it's all about, guys. So which I'm sure you're aware of already. So this argument about, okay, whether it's going to replace it or not, I think, it doesn't matter in the big scheme of things, because people, as long as it helps people move forward, there's improvements, there's progress overall. If they end up having just crypto property, and not wanting to invest in gold because they see Bitcoin as a digital gold, so I rather have my money. This is why it's very subjective. But I think what's going to end up happening is, because of not only the financial, economic implications, but also the sentimental value, the history behind it, I think people will still hold on to gold. I think, in fact, over time, people will actually hold on and accumulate precious natural resources, because in my opinion, there will be future conflicts over of them. We already saw some of the conflicts in terms of coltan, for example, from Congo. A lot of issues with trying to get that sourced ethically. I think blockchain technology will definitely help in terms of track. We're already seeing this by several companies already using blockchain to track their precious resources. But I think that will continue, that trend will continue to play out in terms of helping to increase transparency. More and more people, I feel like they're going to want to get tokenized assets that will allow them to have as much exposure to different industries and areas, niches as possible. And that's how I see things playing out. So don't be too concerned or too distracted by this. This versus this. Is gold better or Bitcoin better? Whatever. In my opinion, I'm certainly going to. I have gold, I have Bitcoin, and I have other assets. So for me, it's all about being exposed to different things. However way other people want to do it is up to them. There's no. I don't feel that there's no wrong answers. It's the value that you derive from this, what it means to you, and how it benefits you. And whether it aligns with your objectives. So that's really, I think they both have value. I think they both long term will be, continue to have that sustained demand for it. So, um, just watch out. I mean, the problem with gold and other assets that are, especially if there's paper claims, paper-based assets. Of course, now you can, if you wanted to trade gold online or whatever, you can do that. But still, having claims to, unless you have that piece of gold with you somewhere, I feel like you're literally handing a big chunk of your power to the custodian, to the third party. So for me, it sort of defeats the whole point of having a different asset that someone else actually, in reality controls. And to me, I would prefer to have it with me, and with relatively easy access, and in a safe place, obviously. But yeah, it defeats the whole point if you put all your assets, all your your wealth into banks and traditional central parties that are able to do what they want essentially with it. you know, especially worst case scenario. I mean, it might give you peace of mind. You know, that's still perfectly up to you. But to me, I'm beginning to realize over time it's better to have as much control as you can and be exposed to different things to diversify and mitigate your risk and diversify your and maximize your opportunities. And we're already seeing that in many industries, that there's a, you know, trends of companies and individuals making sure that they have their you know, they have some level of diversity. If they're sticking to one industry in particular, they want to make sure that they have different other niches that they work in, and they you know, own, or they are able to somehow get exposure to that. And so that's the key: diversifying as much as you can, and making sure you have ownership as much as you can. So that's going to be the thing. The takeaway for me is that, you know, both of them will rise in value, in my opinion. So why not have both of them, rather than try and work out, okay, I'll have only this or only that. To me, it doesn't make sense. Just you know, make sure you have a wide umbrella of, in my opinion, at least that's what I'm doing, as wide, as diverse as you can. So, and also what I was going to say is we're increasingly seeing tokenization of assets anyway. So, you know, we're going to end up having all sorts of things that we've acquired, and there's going to be different markets popping off, and, you know, there'll always be money to be made. There'll always be real world use cases where we can, like, this is going to sound crazy, but you know how you have collectible toys or collectible stamps, collectible you know, books, you know, artwork or whatever. There'll always be markets, and there'll always be new markets forming, not just the traditional. There's always going to be something. There's going to be you know, whatever your interests are. I'm pretty sure there's already collectibles in there, but there's going to be more range, more access. You know, the costs of transacting and transferring will be reduced, and with tokenization, it also helps establish, by using trustless systems, like we see with blockchain technology. We ensure that we remove the third party, and it's just me and you transacting. I have something that you love, or you have something I love, and let's just do business straight up. Less transaction fees, less time, cut out the middleman. We cut out that, you know, the ability that they have to manipulate and you know, control certain aspects, like transaction fees, for example. And so it's just a win-win. Going straight to the source is always a win-win, in my opinion. And having these trustless systems is only going to help to increase that, and you know, build on the foundation of progress that we're seeing on that. And another thing I wanted to mention was in Hong Kong, there's an exchange called Gatecoin. You may have heard of it. And so, man, it's had crazy, it had a crazy ride, right? It's been hacked. It's had issues with its payment processing as well. And, you know, what was backing up our point before in regards to banks, how banks can freeze your accounts anytime they want. You're not really in full control if you have them as custodians of your funds. And also with banking access in the crypto space, a lot of crypto startups, companies have been facing this uphill battle because of the very, you know, the very technology, their very business models it's competitors to the bank. It's a threat to the bank. And of course, they're going to, you know, I'm not surprised that they're turning them down. But the fact that they're freezing, I mean, this is no surprise, but it's actually been increasing over recent time. So with Gatecoin, unfortunately, they were affected by that. Their banks, they had an existing one that was frozen. They opened up another bank account that was frozen too. Um, and so, we have, to me, it's like, if you are in the crypto space, the whole point of, as a startup, is trying to reduce or eliminate your reliance on the traditional financial system and get your sources, your funds straight from the crowd, from the community, using the technology, and building that wealth, that foundation and the ecosystem. That, in my opinion, is the whole point, is to cut out the bankers, cut out the middlemen. And I know this is easier said than done, but there's been many successes already showing that, and this is why they feel threatened. Venture capitalists feel threatened, because the normal methods and models showing how to raise funds on a large scale, they've been they've been worried for quite some time, and that's why they've had part of their business, looking to go into the crypto side, having a diversify their processes as well, their investments, into making sure that they are covered there as well. And I feel like that people are finding different alternative methods to raise funds, ICOs, how they've been treated by regulators like the SEC. Hopefully, with time, this will get better. But there's no point in relying on banks or regulators, or looking to have them deal with your funds and looking to them for solutions. Of course, I do believe in collaboration and making sure you're on the, you're compliant and whatnot with existing laws, especially with securities laws. But the whole point of these crypto companies looking to find jurisdictions where they're crypto friendly and they'll be able to open bank accounts with no issues, crypto friendly banks, if there's such a thing. Or some bank. Actually, there are some banks, just a few at the moment, but there are some that are actually looking to close that gap there, because they know there's big money there. They do want to, open custodian, have custodian services and whatnot. Again, it's really for their benefit. But the fact that Gatecoin went to these traditional financial places, they're not even doing that. I don't know what they were thinking, but if it wasn't a crypto friendly bank, I mean, why on earth would you risk putting your funds there? The mind boggles. But take this as a lesson, that at any point in time, with any reason or even no reason at all, they can shut your account down, freeze your assets. And so, if you remember, they had like bad news after bad news. I mean, it's mad. But these companies, they have to look for solutions that are more crypto specific and away from the traditional financial spaces. So it's, and on the bank side, in defense of their approach, they want to mitigate some of the risks. I mean, with the official line being that they want to make sure that for anti-money laundering purposes, financial terrorism reasons, and the KYC and AML requirements that they have in place is really to protect them. And it's something which I feel like more and more banks will be very cautious, will be taking a stand in regards to whether they should be funded, helping to give banking services to crypto startups. I'm not surprised that they're continuing to be hostile, but there will be, like, banks like America's Signature Bank. In Europe, you have Bank Frick as well. They're serving crypto businesses as well. So they're going to end up making money as a result, and all the other big banks will be missing out on that revenue. But again, to me, it defeats the point. It's like, look to use your technology, use the existing processes in place in the industry to be able to fund, to raise funds and finance major projects, because it has been done, and it has been proven to work. And you know, to me, the mind boggles what they're thinking of, and use stable coins as well as a bridge. So they're starting to get the message. I feel like, okay, the more you know, struggles that they face trying to open traditional banking facilities, they're going to know, okay, I'm actually doing the right thing, being in the crypto space. Let me go back to the community, direct to the source, direct to the community, put my idea, and the idea, if it actually helps provide value to and helps to solve problems, there's real world value. I don't see how it's only a matter of time. I don't see how they would have long-term problems trying to raise finance, especially when the market at some point recovers as well. The amount of interest that will return back, and the way I feel at that point ICO funding, and how companies will be approached, it will be different this time, but I am expecting a lot more. It will be easier for ICOs to be able to raise funds, unless then if new regulations are put in place that help, you know, restricts them in such a way as to, you know, for them to, they'd have to move to another country, for example, another to have to go to a crypto friendly jurisdiction to be able to do that. Then yeah, I definitely see that the this issue is only going to get worse for crypto companies that look to open traditional banking facilities and services to help them. And you know what was interesting is there was Kraken's CEO, Jesse Powell. So Jesse tweeted that they basically had to employ the arts of a money launderer to survive by spreading funds across several banks and stuffing cash into safety deposit boxes. At that point, I was like, what? You know, yeah, the fact that they even have to resort to that is really sad. And I'm thinking, okay, they really need to go back to the market and find alternative ways, smarter ways to be able to do that. But yeah, finding ways to circumvent the big banks is definitely going to be number one thing, in my opinion, with blockchain startups, with these companies. And hopefully that will get easier as they come together and band together and create alliances and be able to have these cooperatives and credit unions, like crypto credit unions. I think that will be popular. And so they'd be able to lend to each other. And I think that in terms of fees and interest rate, whatever, will be much less than what you'd have in the traditional system. So there's so much scope, so much possibility, and really it will come back down to having different alternatives, and having something in place that not just blockchain startups can benefit, but the whole entire industry will benefit in indirect ways. And so I definitely feel like the banks, if anything, are shooting themselves in the foot. But really, I mean, I do understand their reasons, but to be honest with you, that's within their constitution. I mean, they are only doing what they are designed to do. So, you know, why are we surprised when they decline or deny or excuse me, decline or freeze these assets, these funds that these crypto businesses have? It's really like they're going into the lion's den almost. So we have a long way to go where, you know, there's going to be alternatives, in my opinion, where you will have banks creating their own crypto coin, or offering crypto-friendly services, or acting as a bridge to the crypto space. But I still, in my opinion, I still wouldn't trust them. I will have my fiat, percentage of my fiat, dealing with my fiat because we need it for certain things. But as cryptos and the blockchain continues to be adopted, and all manner of businesses and projects continuing to flourish and grow and be adopted, I do believe there will be continuing to be a shift towards adopting anything that will help people increase their quality of life. So something that will reduce their costs overall, something that will help them boost their income, something that will help them save time. I mean, the big industry that people are looking at is the remittance industry, which I will not get into now, but that's something which, with cryptos in particular, is going to be a big area that I feel will be helped to filled in. That it's all going to be about reducing transaction fees and processing times, and especially to emerging countries where they heavily rely on these remittances. I think there's going to be all sorts of incredible developments that happen off the back of that, and time will tell how these traditional remittance services providers will react. I feel they're definitely going to have to adapt. People, I mean, I don't know what Western Union's rate is to send to particular countries. I mean, you can go on the website, but some of these, or even the in-store prices, I don't think that's going to be in vogue anymore. I don't think it's going to be fashionable anymore. It's going to be seen as probably as a last resort, and old, something that other like Luddites would do, basically. But yeah, most people, the way they're moving their money and transacting, it's moving to any processing technology that will allow them to get more value out of it, and reducing the costs overall. That's going to be the key thing to watch for. And and so Visa, not Visa, there's another startup called Together that is launching a prepaid Visa debit card. They will allow their users to spend like seven. You're going to have a choice of 7 different cryptos. Now, it's not arrived; it hasn't been released yet. But the fact that you now have, I mean, we know about Visa's involvement, how they've been patenting blockchain patents, and they have their own projects in place and whatnot, and also with MasterCard as well. And I'm going to be interested to see if the reliance on Visa debit issued cards, if that will continue if there's going to be more collaboration done, or whether that's going to be completely gone at some point. But they have to do something. That I do feel like if payment processors like Visa and MasterCard do not innovate and adapt and add some sort of exposure to the crypto space, because they know they can't take over and control it. They know they're going to have to find ways to find win-win situations, and have collaborations and partners, and have these startups coming on board with them and doing business with them. I mean, if they're taking some level of fees from them, having another stream of revenue from that, in a way, having exposure in that way, they're going to be happy. But they, obviously no one wants to be replaced, and no one wants to go extinct. But yeah, Visa and MasterCard are already taking a proactive approach by looking to see how they can maximize the advantages of the technology. Yeah, So this is something that I wanted to mention. Also, now that the Samsung S10 phones are, you can pre-order and have them shipped and whatnot, I do expect, because that was due to start this month, yeah, at some point this month. I think it was March the 8th. And it's different, shipping times, different pre-order times for different jurisdictions around the world. But the more the S10, remember you have some people upgrading their talk plans, cell phone packages and whatnot. You have some that are just simply buying it. You have some that are crypto heads, investors already in this space, and they love the idea of upgrading to a phone with a hardware wallet. And uh, the way I see things, I think with that level of literally putting people exposed to the, like, that's their gateway to get their very first exposure to cryptos. That's actually going to that's going to multiply the effect, I think, in a quicker way than we realize. So if they're targeting 10 million Samsung S10 holders, sorry, 10 million customers with the S10 phone, and you have 10 million at some point looking through the phone, if they're not already aware of cryptos, but they want exposure, they want to learn, and they want to get cryptos to then start using it. That effect on the market is going to be incredible to witness over the long term. And I'm curious to see, how that will, for this particular, in this year, how that's going to translate. And I will like to think that some of the positive sentiments right now, part of the confidence coming back to the market is attributed to some of these big developments that are happening with Samsung, with Facebook, with, countless of, these companies, especially with social media, and social media with mobile portable devices, laptops, phones. It's a perfect synergy, it's a perfect fit. And they're coming together to find ways that they can expose themselves to the technology, and see how they can create new value systems and value increase value in the existing chains and whatnot. So, great things popping as usual. And I think the market feels like they're anticipating and already anxious to get the recovery going. But again, we're going to have to see if these are genuine increases, and we're going to have to wait for confirmations, like I said. But on the ground, we already know, like, the value, really, I think the value should be higher. I think it would definitely be over that 10,000 psychological level. In my opinion, it should have been there already. But I know for a lot of investors, it's in their interest to have the price go down as low as possible, so they can accumulate on lower price points. But this is a major opportunity from what I'm seeing at this particular price point. And if it goes down to 3,000, 2,000, major opportunities there as well. But if we end up seeing a true recovery and takes it back to that 10,000, you're going to start seeing the interest on the market, in the industry, will actually be a lot more intense, and it will come at a faster rate than previously. So that's one thing to anticipate, because of all the developments that's happened in the past 2 years. That is why I feel it, when it's actually confirmed, and we see a true reversal and recovery and growth, that bull run will be a lot more intense, in my opinion. So yeah, just watch out, as ever. Just stay tuned and stay educated on the space. And there's a lot more happening. than we know behind closed doors and on the ground. And so far, the real evidence, the collective evidence we're seeing, it's a extremely bright future for the space. And I expect you to know that already as well. But yeah, it's just watch out to see if it breaks those ranges that I mentioned, and the volumes are continuing to increase and be sustained. So with that, thank you very much. Have a fantastic week. I shall see you on Friday. And be good. Have a good one. Take care, guys.